So Bitcoin hit, I think for like a moment, 50K. I think it's just under
Yeah.
50K right now. So a lot of people made a lot of money, and some people are deciding to take some profits off the table. Some people are still riding this thing out. Our community is kind of, split, and I totally get it. Everyone's got a separate strategy. What are you looking at ETH? Like ETH seems like it's lagging. Like what are you seeing here in the charts?
Okay, so what I see is the speculation starting in October that drove that big move higher in BTC. We're talking about roughly 90% in 90 days. ETH saw a similar positive performance, not quite as much. And I see ETH stuck in this channel here. But one thing that's very interesting to me, Lucas, is BTC reclaimed its spring 2022 high
Hmm.
and has pushed above it. ETH, on the other hand, has not. That
Hmm.
spring 2022 high is 3,600. And so, what I think is that ETH, with the speculation now around this ETH ETF by May, I think that we may start to see Ethereum outperform Bitcoin, especially if Bitcoin holds the 50K level and consolidates. I think that we might see flows into ETH. And
Hmm.
I think that we could see that happen quickly.
Hmm.
And so, what I'm watching as an indicator of where these funds are flowing is this pair, BTC ETH. And what I'm really looking for, sometimes it's better to get a different perspective. And I like to invert this chart to get a little bit of a
Nice.
different perspective. It just helps me. So I see, and remember, this is ETH priced in Bitcoin. So I think that it's going to go from 19 ETH per BTC up to 13 ETH per BTC, which, by the way, happens to be the spring 2022 high
Which was
ETH
what,
per
3,600 you
BTC.
said
I think
ish.
it's going to go to 3,600. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to happen over the next couple of months.
So good. And the ETH ETFs, kind of whatever happened with Bitcoin with the ETFs, it seemed like that drove the price like crazy. It just seems like every time there's a news event, like the Bitcoin halving's coming up, anything that makes headlines gets people reinterested in crypto markets again. And it seems to be short-lived at times. So that's where we can really make some nice profits if you're positioned positioned ahead of that news.
Yeah, what was so interesting though, Lucas, was on Jan 10, when the ETF was approved, the Bitcoin ETF, Bitcoin dumped and ETH pumped because
Right.
the narrative, uh, the transition in that narrative was almost instantaneous. Once there was that precedent, hey, the markets, the SEC approved these ETFs. Now there's a precedent that's been set. Now it's just a matter of time until we see an ETH ETF. And the market started pricing that in almost immediately. So I expect to see some ETH outperformance against BTC over the next couple of months on the back of speculation that there's going to be an ETH ETF. I think that 3,600 is a reasonable target by May.
Let's go.